here from Souhegan Valley Motorsports.
What's up, y'all?
We got a chance to take out the Lynx Boondocker this weekend. Get a few hours of riding on it. Will and myself both are coming off Ski-Doo 850 Turbo Summit. I'm currently on a 165 3-inch and he's on a 154 3-inch, so this is a good comparison to how this 165 4100 here.
I think for me, obviously this being a bigger sled than what I ride, one of the reasons why I like the 154s is they are light and playful in the front, and you know, as some of you know, I like to do wheelies. And on a 165, generally speaking, you know, they have more ski pressure, and you know, the 12 o'clock stuff isn't as
easy.
So like, I think one of the biggest differences for me was, you know, having the ability to do that with this thing and having it be playful, but also like if you wanted to climb something, it would, you point and shoot, and it's very stable in a forward direction with minimal wibbly wobbly, you know, side to side movement.
The big thing that I noticed with this thing was definitely probably the skis though.
Yeah, I would say so. And you know, to touch upon the, you know, getting the sled on edge, it's certainly a little bit less effort, and those skis hold a side hold really good.
Yeah.
And it tracks pretty straight without having to maybe fight it.
It is much easier, I think, to pull up on its side. The skis being a little bit wider definitely gave us a little bit more flotation. If we look at it, we have, you know, one wider ski, single keel, not as deep as the DS3 ski that we have on our Summit Turbos. So going down the trail, it was a little bit more solid and predictable in the corners for sure.
Less likely to,
yeah, it didn't drift around, especially on the harder pack stuff.
One thing I wanted to talk about, obviously, one of the buzz things with this sled is the skid. So here is the PPS2 DS skid. Basically, you know, obviously this is one of the major differences. So you've got one single shock here, no T-motion. So there's all kinds of space back here, which I think, you know, is super beneficial because it doesn't hold snow. It doesn't allow snow to stay in the skid. It kind of, you know, assists it in getting out of there. And that's really going to attribute to the difference in handling, in hill climbing, holding a side hill, stuff like that.
Why it wants to wheelie a little bit more. We have, you know, obviously wanting to lift those front skis and bring the front end up. You know, we don't have torsion springs in this skid anymore. We've got that single large coilover shock like we were talking about. Yep. So a lot of guys in the Summit world have been looking into torsion spring deletes and going to these single sprung shocks.
Got a little more stability, and as you can see, you don't have any flex because it's uncoupled in here, aside from the flex edge strap. So
it pretty much would go anywhere that either of our sleds would normally go, both of the turbos. Even though this is a 165 3-inch machine, it does act a little bit more playful than a standard Summit 165, so it acts a little bit more like a 154. When you are wrong foot forward, these being a little bit narrower, it's nice because you can have your foot in on the side of the tunnel, pretty positive feel, and that you're still able to have your foot hanging off. I know on my Summit X, with it being that little bit wider, that I'm a little bit further out on the point, and I almost don't.
Because you can brace your foot or your toes up against the side of the tunnel.
Yeah, it honestly feels a little bit better having just that touch narrower. These things are super rigid. They are not riveted on like the Summit X's are that we're used to. These are more kind of like the SP, where they're part of the tunnel with reinforcements riveted to that. They're extremely rigid. They have the kick-ups in the back, like the X's do, which is nice because that's one thing on an SP that I know a lot of guys add the accessory one, and it's something if I ride an SP that I do definitely miss, is having those in the back there.
I think the other thing I'd like to touch upon too, and again, being critical because there is certainly a lot of room to move around on a Summit, but you know, having this area up by your gas tank more open allows for that much more movement, and that's pretty cool. These are definitely more narrow and more slanted back.
Yeah.
So, you know, less surface area for you to smash your knee into something.
It's nice you can really get in on the machine, you know, and offer a little bit more maybe control and a lot more room to maybe move around on it and hop side to side on this thing. The tunnel is even shorter than a Summit Expert. We don't have that extra small flap here. We've got obviously the Lynx snow flap that mounts to the rear axle. that does definitely catch the snow and get it back up in the tunnel. This thing honestly stayed cool the whole time, even though it was shooting a huge roost out the back. It's crazy how much that must direct back up in the tunnel.
Functional. And I'd like to definitely note that we were skeptical about that. Didn't even know it was there.
The only time maybe backing up in some deep snow where it does get kind of plugged up on it. It does do its job going down the trail, keeping it cool. So I never ran into a situation where it overheated. Kept solid temp about 140 degrees or so, I would say. The other things where we're pretty similar is we've got basically the 36 shocks that come on the Summit Expert, so that's something that we're both familiar with. The shocks are valved a little bit stiffer than a standard SP, but also a little bit better than I would say an X package. So this thing handles pretty good in the front end, takes some hits. Glove box here is the same. The dash is the same. We're using the same gauge on the Gen 4 850s that we have.
With the belt temp sensor.
Yep, belt temp sensor is still built in on this one as well. The other thing in the front end to note, nose cone here, front of that's all pretty much the same as our Gen 4 850s. Where the differences come in is basically up in the hood section where we've got a lot of things that are different. This hood section here, the side panels, and controls are a little bit different in the console area. The other cool thing with this here, factory included options obviously are going to be the brake reservoir cover that we have there that is an accessory option for the Ski-Doos but comes standard on the Lynx. And then the other cool thing is they already threw the 12-volt outlet here in the glove box, so we were actually able to have a nice little glove box this weekend.
Yep,
so
that was pretty rad. Grips are different. The grips are real cool. Super smooth. Definitely a little bit wider than what you would see on an Expert where they have the tapered bars, but comfortable and for a factory grip, really nice.
All right, so we touched on pretty much all the features throughout this with me and Will. Just going over the quick things that I really liked about this thing. Obviously the floorboards, the rear skid, those front skis, definitely very noticeable things on it that did change the ride and the maneuverability of the machine over my current Summit X. I think what's cool with the Lynx is that all of us that are used to the Ski-Doos and used to the 850 E-Tech engine, that this sled is very comfortable and familiar for most people. You get on it and you ride it the same way that you ride your current Ski-Doo.
It's refined, you know. There's a lot of little refinements. It's like it's hard to imagine refining what is so refined already, but you know they managed to do it. So here we are.
And go!
And go!
And go!
Action!
Hey!
What's up?
You know.
So we're here to interview as a team.
All right, hold on, do it again.